So we have some hot items on the upcoming election ballot, including marijuana and abortion. And the outcome of those issues may depend on turnout. So we have two experts today to talk about what we can expect. We have Anita Ruf-Young, who's director of the Office of Civic Engagement at Cleveland State University. And we have Anthony Perlatti, who's the director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So first, let's start out. Just tell our audience a little bit about yourselves. Anita, you want to go first?
Well, as you said, my name is Anita Ruf-Young, and I'm the director of the Office of Civic Engagement at Cleveland State University. I've been with Cleveland State University for 19 years, and I've been in this role for the last 6 years.
And the Office of Civic Engagement, among other things, is involved with elections?
Yes, the Office of Civic Engagement takes the lead on campus for the nonpartisan civic engagement of our campus community.
Great.
And we also work hard to have community service learning programs where our students actually go out, not just civically, but into the community to help a lot of public nonprofit partners.
Very good. Tony, tell us about what you do.
Sure. So I've been a public servant for 28 years now. And since 2007, working at the Board of Elections. I am currently the director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections, which is one of the biggest boards of elections in the state of Ohio. We are responsible for all things election related. So creating the ballot, proofing the ballot, testing the equipment that we set out into the field, hiring poll workers, training them, dealing with campaign finance laws, candidate petitions, anything that deals with voting that happens in Cuyahoga County, and we're made up of 59 communities, has to come through the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections.
Directors of boards of elections historically has been, fairly calm, easy job. In the last election or two, it hasn't been quite that way around the country. Here it's been good, but around the country there's been a lot of issues that come up. How do you handle things like that here?
So since 2020 to present day, no election year has been traditional or as we expected it to be. And so while we have our core processes that we always hold on to, and you don't deviate from those, we maintain that through everything we do. And then the personality and the curveballs that every election takes on, we then adjust to that. And it's a living, breathing thing, the election. You have to do that. And the staff that we have conduct themselves with the utmost integrity. And so this is how we're able to weather all these things that are thrown our way, whether it's from a pandemic to the legislature in Columbus passing laws way too close to an election, but you have to execute it, and it's all about the voters. And so you do what you have to do to get it right.
Anita, you spend a lot of effort helping get people registered and get people out to vote, which is the foundation for our democracy. Tell us what you do.
So the mission of our office is to engage our students civically. We want to create active citizens, but we do it in a nonpartisan way. It's not up to our office or anyone on campus to tell students how to vote or what to think. We want to introduce them to nonpartisan resources and give them the tools necessary so they can make their own decisions. Part of what we do is we go out and we set up at least 20 voter registration tables every semester so that students always have the opportunity to register to vote, update their voter registration, or apply to vote by mail. But we want to go beyond just having them register to vote. We want to get them actively engaged. So we actually recruit ballot box openers for election night for the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. In 2022, our students, 178 of them, actually volunteered to work at the election headquarters to sort ballots. So we're actually in the middle of doing that again right now. We also partner with our first year experience course. I wrote a curriculum called Vikes Vote, where it talks to students about all things civics. What are midterm elections? What are off-year elections? What are general elections? Where can you find nonpartisan information? What are the deadlines for each election? We talk about ways to get civically engaged, like by being a poll worker. During the pandemic hit the elderly the hardest, and so they oftentimes make up the majority of our poll workers. So we're trying to get that next generation to step up and fill those roles. We also, besides the curriculum that we put out to all of our first-year students and transfer students, we supply them with a call to action at the end. They can choose to register to vote, update their voter registration, or apply to vote by mail. And it was actually the Board of Elections that supplied us the 2,350 vote by mail and voter registration forms that we needed, because we couldn't possibly get those on our own without them. We also hold civic dialogues where we'll bring local leaders in to engage with students to talk about hard issues. We also educate students through social media posts and reels and on our website about things like House Bill 458 that can impact how they cast a ballot and when they can cast a ballot. We have a lot of out-of-state students, so we answer questions for them both in social media and in person at our tables. We host National Voter Registration Day, where we've built a huge coalition of partners, everything from Cleveland Votes to NOVO, which is Northeast Ohio Voter Advocates, the Board of Elections, the Greater Cleveland League of Women Voters, but also the basketball team, first-year experience on campus in the library. With the basketball team last year, we actually walked over so they could vote early. A lot of them, it was their first time actually getting to cast a ballot. So they got the bell rung at the Board of Elections when they cast their ballot. And earlier, we had already registered them to vote. So getting to see them cast their ballot for the first time, and for their teammates who weren't able to vote in Cuyahoga County to actually get to see their friends and teammates cast a ballot was wonderful. So and we also took Magnus, our mascot. He walked over with us.
You must be some kind of magician, because to try to get young people actively engaged in almost anything, but especially voting, it's not easy, but you've managed to do it.
Well, I think when I took over this role, I wanted to approach it from a student's perspective. So I would ask students what they needed, what they were looking for. And so we're trying to meet them where they are, in the classroom, on campus, in the student union, in the library, online, on social media. Some of our reels, the students are really engaging. Some of them have reached over 10,000 views. So we know the information is getting out there. In the last couple of years, our voter registration rate on Cleveland State's campus is 89%.
Wow.
And in the 2020 election, 73.5% of our eligible voters actually cast a ballot.
That's amazing.
And this year alone, we've registered 685 students to vote or to fill out a vote by mail.
That is great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tony, do you work with Cleveland State and other of the groups that she mentioned, the League of Women Voters and others, to try to get people registered and out to vote?
We definitely do. So the Board of Elections, we don't internally have the staffing resources to go out and blanket the county. It's a large county. So what we do is we work with great partners like Cleveland State and a lot of the other groups that Anita had said, Northern Ohio Voter Advocates and all those groups, to train them, to be the official conduit of this is the correct information, this is how the law works, these are the deadlines, this is how the forms are, because that is our expertise. So if we can have all these individuals who are energetic like Anita and want to get out and have these populations right available to them, we want to be able to give them the resources, whether it's the documents, the information, whatever it is, to be able to do that and be that expert and be the conduit between the voter and getting all their information in correctly so they can participate in the process. It's really is the way to, I think, to have the most effective process is by doing that, and like Anita said, it takes a lot of work, and her being able to focus on that and having all of these students right here, she can connect with them in a way that we never could at the Board of Elections. So
when I was with the county, I remember you calling and saying, we need help with poll workers, for example, and we talked to our employees. But if you can, if Anita's able to help with students, that's a huge benefit to the community.
I think the key is definitely partnerships. We could not do this without our partners. For instance, on National Voter Registration Day, We had Alpha Kappa Alpha, Cleveland Votes, Campus Vote Project, the Board of Elections. They supplied us the ballot boxes. We can't do this alone. It really takes a group to make sure that people get engaged, are informed, so they can make decisions and have their voice heard when they cast their ballot.
You mentioned the state legislature, and for this election, they've made some changes in the law. Voter IDs requirements changed, the number of early vote days changed, and other changes. Do you advocate, either of you, both of you, on issues like that? And how do you think those changes are going to impact the voting this year?
I'll go first on that. So there is in Ohio, the Ohio Association of Election Officials, and it is really a lobbyist group that the 88 counties, the boards of elections can pay dues to be a member of that. We are a member of that association. I am one of the trustees, so there are 20 trustees throughout the state. So I used to be on the legislative committee. I try to be very involved with that because that is the arm of election officials really to try to engage with legislators in Columbus to let them know our opinions and facts on things that they're putting forward and what we believe is possible or not possible to do. As well as the legislators at times will come to our organization and ask us to review their bills. And we gladly do that and provide the information. Sometimes they like what they hear and sometimes they don't. But what we do is it's a nonpartisan organization made up 50% Democrats, 50% Republicans. And so we're giving that nonpartisan view of these bills with the focus on the voter. How does it impact the voter? Because it's always more about making it easier for them to participate versus making our jobs easier. That's kind of how we advocate.
Both of you are nonpartisan, and that's increasingly difficult in these very divisive years that we're in right now, and especially with hot button issues like abortion or marijuana. I mean, you must both get questions from the students and you from the general public. How do you address questions about these issues?
Well, in our case, in the Office of Civic Engagement, when groups or organizations from either side of an issue contact our office and want to get on campus, we go through our policies for both campus communication and also our policies. So if one side wants to come on campus, so around the abortion issue, Protect Choice Ohio, we then reached out to the other side, Protect Women Ohio, and gave them both the opportunity to come on campus, gave them rules of engagement, so that way students can have exposure to both sides.
And do they come out?
They do come out. And students will volunteer with both groups on both sides of the issue. When it comes to things like House Bill 458, we just try to provide students with the information.
458?
458 is the one that changed the voting laws in Ohio. So things about IDs, taking off Monday for early in-person voting. So we just try to give them information on that. We don't take a stand. We just want to make sure that they have the information so they know what they need to do. But in terms of controversial issues on our website, we'll also put up both sides and links to more information, because that way students can pursue in the privacy of their phone or at home on their computer what side they want to learn more about, not just what people are telling them.
Of course, there's no privacy anymore, but I understand your point.
Right.
Tony, how do you deal with those kind of questions?
So we actually, we don't comment on the actual issues themselves. We stay neutral. So our goal or our job is to administer the election. So we make sure that everyone who wants to participate has the ability to do it. So as far as we will post a language, we provide rules on how you engage in the process, but actually what that language means, we stay away from that. And we redirect individuals who come to us to things like Cleveland State or to the League of Women Voters and to go to those types of things, because what we want is, we want to be a neutral agency, and we want everyone who goes and casts a ballot to walk out going, that was a neutral process that's not leaning one way or another, And so that's how we conduct ourselves. So we actually push back on some of that and stick to, again, just operationally, this is how you participate. If you want more information, here's where you can go get some resources, or direct them to the 2 county political parties. So we have to kind of take a different approach in order to be neutral.
The Board of Elections, the board itself is made up of half Democrats, half Republicans. During the last election cycle, there was an issue about numbers of drop boxes to make it easier for people to vote by mail. Come in down and drop and then we had talked about having drop boxes literally around the county.
Yes.
The Board of Elections came together, Democrats and Republicans, and decided that they would approve more drop boxes in various locations. That was rejected by the Secretary of State. How does this Board of Elections, your Board of Elections, deal with the Secretary of State?
So you are correct in that we have 4 board members, 2 are Democrats and 2 Republicans, and that's by Ohio law. And in 2020, they put their partisan, and they do this often, they put away their partisan hats and they look at what is the best election administration and what is best for the voters. And that's how we were able to get those 4 board members to say, hey, Cuyahoga County for over a decade has led the state in vote by mail. And 1 ballot box in the middle of Cleveland doesn't get it done for 59 communities. And so we did put together a plan that ultimately, you're right, the Secretary of State said, no, you can't do that. We were going to partner with our libraries and be in their parking lots to do that. And so,
which sounded great, by the way.
Yeah, and we were the only county in the state to put forward a plan like that. And unfortunately, it did not happen. And so the Secretary of State, in dealing with the Secretary of State, it depends on what the topic is. And I think ultimately he does want, and that office wants what's best for the voters. But sometimes that definitely is a more political office than, say, your local Board of Elections, because they're elected statewide. And so, I think that's just part of the reality of it. But we do have a relationship with the Secretary of State. They take our phone calls. Doesn't mean they give us everything that we want, but it's important to have that, and we do foster and have that relationship. But one of the things I'm proud about in our county is that, and I don't want to jinx anything, so we'll knock on wood. When our 4 board members, they have to take votes on lots of things, and we get majority votes on a lot of them, and most of them are unanimous votes, as opposed to ties where it kicks it down the Secretary of State. And that happens because, again, they're focused on the administration, which they should be, and what's good for the voters, what's good for candidates, over what's good for my party, whatever that is.
And to see this Board of Elections come together, Democrats and Republicans, especially dealing with elections these days, which are difficult at best nationwide and very partisan. And you see the Democrats and Republicans coming together in Cuyahoga County on numerous election issues, and I credit you in part for that, and the members of the board who, as you said, put aside partisan issues and come together. One more sensitive question I'll ask you. Our Secretary of State is one of the candidates for U.S. Senate right now, which will be on the ballot coming up, not this one in November, but
in March.
Yep. How do you deal with that, what I would consider to be a potential conflict of interest issue at the board?
So the Secretary of State, like anyone, is entitled to run for any office that they're eligible for. What we do in Cuyahoga County is, if something like when that happens, any of the documents, the posters, the signage, the rules that we post, whether it's at our early person voting center or out at the polls, if it has a Secretary of State logo and name, we will take stickers and cover those up. We want to make that so that information is neutral when you look at it, and you're not unintentionally seeing the name of someone who is appearing on that actual ballot that you're in there voting. So that's how we deal with that. Any kind of conflict of interest, that's a question for the Attorney General's office, and he can have that question.
Good answer. You can be a lawyer. So we're coming up to a presidential year in 2024, and we all saw what happened during the last presidential election. There were issues in many boards of elections around the country. How do you both anticipate this presidential election going? Here in Cuyahoga County in 2020, it was smooth. Give me your predictions for 2024 for Cuyahoga County.
I have all the faith in the world in our Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Our elections here run smoothly. People can trust the process and the officials. We have poll workers on each side, both Republican and Democrat, that can watch and make sure that our elections are safe and accessible for everyone. And I think that people just need to pay attention to, the deadlines, making sure that they're ready to vote, and trust in the process that we are here nonpartisanly protecting the elections and making sure that everyone's voice is heard.
Do you sense a huge divisiveness among the students and other members of the campus community are coming around this election for 2024, or do you think it'll be relatively even?
I don't know. I don't like to make predictions in terms of how the students will engage. It is their right to engage and speak on whatever candidates or issues that they support.
I wasn't looking so much for a prediction as amount of divisiveness and civility. Do you see this as being civil on campus, or is that going to go away?
I believe it'll be civil. I think we have a lot of great leaders on our campus, in our classrooms, in our activities areas, in our advising areas, in our office, that make sure that every student feels that they have a voice and that it's safe. Our president even signed a commitment for full voter participation, is what her goal is. And I think that we're setting the tone that our campus supports you in whatever you support. So I don't think so, but if there is, then we will address it as a campus community, and we will come out to make sure that everyone has safe and accessible voting and to be able to express their opinion.
Cuyahoga County, same question.
Yeah, it's going to be a good election, and what a lot of people don't know, which is okay, when they go to the polls and they vote and they spend their few minutes there and they fill in their ovals and they leave, to get to that point, it is months and months of work and cooperation with organizations to make that happen. And in a presidential general election, it's the most attended election that we conduct over the kind of like the 4-year cycle. We'll have 70% of voters. You have a lot of people who don't vote who come out for that one. So there's an education campaign to make sure they know what's going on. But for the safety, and what we do is we work with County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, Homeland Security, County Emergency Management, Police Chief Associations, Fire Chief Associations across, and all this stuff is going on behind the scenes, and we have networks to make sure that everyone is safe when they go to the polls, where they go on Election Day, and we have things at our fingertips in case we do need to react. Luckily, we haven't had very much of disturbances at polling locations. You're going to get a couple. It's human nature and it happens, but we've been able to react quickly, and we work with the political parties to make sure that they're telling individuals that's not acceptable and that's not how we want to do that. At our early vote center, the county sheriff's office is key. Having resources there, not to intimidate, but to kind of be faded in the background and keep people safe. So we do all these things, and again, we spend months working on it to be able to set a good environment on the front end, but then also have that reactive safety net there in case we were to have to do something. So,
and I think if you look at the special election in August, on August 8th, around issue 1, very divisive issue. There was a lot of feelings on both sides, and there was very high participation, but they also went off without a snag. So having that as kind of our practice, like leading into next year, I think that demonstrates the ability of the Board of Elections and the people around, the nonpartisan engagement of setting this in a positive way.
Well, I attribute part of the reason that our elections have been so civil and safe to the work that you're both doing. You're getting people out, especially young people, engaged in the election process, which we can't do enough of, and you're doing it. So thank you, Anita, for all your work, and Tony.
Thank you.
You know, the elections you've run here in Cuyahoga County have been really picture perfect. Obviously, there's always little hiccups, but nothing significant here in Cuyahoga County, and I don't anticipate that changing. So I want to thank you both for the work you're doing and for coming in and illuminating the election issues for our audience. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And if I can get Marissa away from the camera for a minute, can you come in for 1 second? I just want to introduce one of our camera workers here who's learning at Cleveland State. She's here with her dad, Tony Perlatti, and Cleveland State has been very happy to have you working with us, Marissa, so thank you very much.
She's also a perfect example of students getting involved. She was actually a democracy fellow in my office through our Campus Vote project and helped us get the word out during the pandemic about voter deadlines, vote by mail, those types of things. So,
thank you too.
good job.